Hey guys, how are you? So today we are going to start with sexual reproduction. So basically what we are covering is chapter 1 of class 12th NCERT. So in the previous video we have already covered asexual reproduction, right? Now in this video we are going to cover sexual reproduction. So basically sexual reproduction involves what? It involves formation of male and female gametes, right? Now, this formation of male and female gamete can be by the same individual or by two different individuals of opposite sexes. Okay. Now, what happens is these gametes basically fuse to form zygote, which develops into a new offspring. Okay. So basically, there is a male gamete, there is a female gamete. These both fuse to form zygote, and this zygote develops into an offspring. Okay, so if we compare the asexual and sexual reproduction, basically, sexual reproduction is more elaborate, it is more complex, and it is slow process as compared to asexual reproduction. Okay, so basically, when any organism, okay, now since here two parents are involved. So in any organism where we have two parents involved, okay, what happens is the offspring that they produce are never identical to either to the parent or even with their other offsprings. So like in asexual reproduction, say in the case of amoeba, what we saw is that it produces clones, right? So it produces exact same offsprings, right? But in the case of sexual reproduction, since there are two different organisms, two different species, two different people involved, and they both are different in their genetic makeup, the offspring that they produce are not identical to the parent or amongst themselves. Okay. Now, in order to reach that, level of growth and maturity in their life, so that you can reproduce sexually, you take a particular time, take a particular period of growth, basically, right? So, all organisms have to reach a certain stage of growth and maturity in their life before they can reproduce sexually. And this phase, okay, when they mature, is basically known as the juvenile phase in case of animals and vegetative phase in case of plants. Okay, and what happens is, so they basically, once they mature, they can start reproduction sexually. Okay, so basically, there are many females of placental mammals, okay, which exhibit cyclical changes in activities of ovaries and accessory ducts. Okay, so basically, male and female, both the organisms, they undergo a cyclical change in their body morphologically as well as anatomically. Okay, and because of these changes, they develop certain hormones as well as morphological structures which helps them basically in reproduction. Okay, so in case of females, what happens is they exhibit cyclical changes in activities of ovaries, which are the reproductive organs, and accessory ducts and hormones. Okay, so during reproductive phase, now basically there are some non-primate mammals like cows, sheep, rats, deer, dogs, tiger, which are basically oestrus, so they have estrus cycle, and then primates like monkeys, apes, and humans, changes that they have are known as menstrual cycle. Okay, so we'll study all these cycle in detail as well in later chapters. Okay, so what happens is that once you attain that maturity and growth so that you can reproduce, what happens is any sexual or all sexually reproducing organisms, they exhibit different events and processes that have very much similar thing so that they can reproduce. Okay, so basically, there are several events and processes which are involved in sexual reproduction. Okay, now what are these processes? So basically, there are three events which are involved in sexual reproduction. First one being pre fertilization event. So there are pre-fertilization events, okay? Then the second one is fertilization events, okay? And the third is post-fertilization events. So basically, what happens once you attain that growth and maturity to reproduce, okay? We are going to study that. So now for the first one is pre-fertilization events. So what happens in this basically is all the events of sexual reproduction prior to the fusion of gametes. Okay, so what does it include? It includes all events prior to fusion of gametes. So there are basically two main pre-fertilization events. One is gametogenesis and the other one is gamete transfer. Okay, so what does gametogenesis mean? Gametogenesis is nothing but formation of two types of gametes, which is male and female. Okay, now these gametes are haploid cells, so it's n in number. Now, in some algae, it can be very similar in appearance, wherein it is known as homogamete, and in different other cases, like say in the case of human beings, Homo sapiens, the two gametes are very different morphologically, wherein it is known as heterogametes. Okay, so basically, the gametes can be of two types. It can be either very similar, both male and female, wherein it is homogamete or isogamete. In some cases, it is very different, morphologically distinct, wherein it is known as heterogametes. Okay, so what happens is the male gamete is known as anthrozoid or sperm, and the female gamete is known as egg or ovum. Okay, so male gamete is anthrozoid or sperm, and female gamete is egg or ovum. Okay, now what kind of sexuality occurs in organisms? So basically, in the case of plants, what happens is they may have both male and female structures in the same plant as well. Okay, so these plants are known as bisexual. And then there are several plants wherein you'll find male and female structure on two different plants. Okay, so these are known as unisexual. Now, in the case of several fungus and plants, again, it can be homothalic and monoecious, okay, or it can be heterothalic and dioecious. So, monoecious is basically having both the sexes on the same plant, dioecious is having different sexes in different plants. It's unisexual. Now, what happens in case of flowering plants? So, in case of flowering plants, they have unisexual male flower, okay, and then female as well. So, basically, they have unisexual male flower, which is staminate, which has stamen, which has pollen grain, which fertilizes, which has the male gamete, and then they have pistil, which has the female egg, right? So they in flowering plants they can have two types of flowers as well. Okay, now we have um, basically covered in class 11th that there are many animals which are hermaphrodite. That means that they have both the sexes. So every individual has both the sexes and can produce both the gametes, like earthworm, sponges, tapeworm, leeches. They are bisexual or hermaphrodite. Okay, but animals like, say, Homo sapiens, we are unisexual, right? So we have male and females as different organisms, right? So now, what the next topic is cell division during gamete formation. So how does the gamete forms? How does the cell division occurs when the gametes are formed? Okay, so gametes in all heterogametic species, okay, are of two types, male and female, right? Now, gametes are haploid through the parent plant body from which they arise. Okay. Now, plant body again may be either haploid or diploid. So, the haploid parent body, okay, remember the haploid parent body produces gametes by mitotic division. Okay, so how they do they produce the gamete? Haploid parent body, okay, they produce gamete by mitosis, okay, by mitotic division, right? So there are several organisms belonging to Monera, fungi, algae, and bryophytes which have haploid parent body. Okay, so there are many which have haploid parent body. Now, there are certain organisms which have diploid parental body as well. So, in case of the diploid parent body, they produce gamete by meiosis, reduction division. Okay, so organisms like gymnosperms, angiosperms, and most of the animals, including humans, they have diploid parental body and they produce gametes through meiosis. They produce gametes through meiosis. Okay, so basically in diploid organisms, there are specialized cells which are myocytes which undergo meiosis, and at the end of meiosis, only one set of chromosome get incorporated into each gametes, and that is how the gametes are haploid in this case as well. Okay, so basically this is how the gametes are formed. In haploid plant body, it is formed through mitosis, and in diploid parent body, it is formed through meiosis. Okay, now what's next? So next, basically, is a chart wherein there are different set of chromosomes as gamete, wherein it is haploid, and then meiocyte, which is 2n in number. Okay, so it's basically double of the gamete because this is formed after fusion of both the gametes, right? So it will be, the number will be doubled here. So you can go through this chart as well. Okay, now say you can see that in the case of human beings, the meiocyte is 46, the gamete is 23, right? Apple it's 34, potato it's 20, potato it's 20, 48 and 24, right? So this is how you can check the chromosome number as well. Okay, now the next thing is, how does gamete transfer occurs? So now we have seen how the gametes are formed, but how does the transfer occur? Okay, so now in both male and female gametes, okay, so basically till now what has happened is the male and female gametes are formed. Now they have to be transferred to a proper medium, right, where the fertilization can occur. So this is the pre-fertilization event basically, right? So both male and female gametes must be physically brought together to facilitate fusion or fertilization, right? Now what happens is the male gamete which is formed is usually motile. It can move, while the female gamete is the static one, it is stationary. Okay, so basically you need a medium for the male gamete to move and reach the female gamete, right? So several plants like algae, bryophytes, and pteridophytes, what we have seen in class 11th as well, that they use water as the medium of gamete transfer. Okay, so they use water as the medium. Now, what happens is that there, when the male gametes are transferred, so the male gametes are transferred in bulk And even then, there are large number of male gametes which fail to reach female gamete. And to compensate this loss, the number of male gametes produced is several thousand times the number of female gamete produced. So what happens is you have one female gamete which is static, which is at its place ready to undergo fertilization. But the so say this is the egg, right? But the male gametes need a medium to move so that it can reach egg, right? So that it can reach egg. Now what happens is that the chances of the male gamete to survive in this medium for the particular time is less, and that is how there are a large number of male gametes which fail to reach the egg and fertilize it. And to compensate for this, right? So, in order to compensate for this, what happens is when the male gametes are produced, these are a lot more than the female gamete produced. Okay. Now we have seen that in many plants it reaches through water, right? Now in seed plants, basically in gymnosperms and angiosperms, these pollen grains are carrier of are carrier of male gamete and ovule have the egg. So in case of seed plants, what happens is the pollen grains are carrier of male gamete and ovule has the egg. So in case of pollen grains, what happens is there are various medium through which pollination occurs. Okay, so it reaches the stigma, and in order to reach there, again, it can use water, it can use wind, it can use insects, different animals, and a lot of things to reach to the ovule. Okay, so basically, this is the pre-fertilization event. Now, what we'll do in the next video is we'll make a part 2 of this video wherein we will discuss fertilization and post-fertilization events of this. Okay, so I hope you understood how the pre-fertilization event occurs in case of plants, right? Animals, any which ways, we'll discuss separately when we'll discuss the animal reproduction. Okay, because it is very different from plants. It's very different from plants. Okay, so please do like the video and share it with your friends as much as you can. And if you have any doubt with respect to this video, please do not hesitate in dropping in a message over a comment on this video or on the number as a WhatsApp message, and the number is provided in the description of the video. Okay, great. So have a good day, study well. Bye bye, guys. Thank you.